In a bid to assure citizens that the markets that no effort is being spared to contain the recent outbreak of avian influenza or bird flu, South Africa's Agriculture Minister Senzeni Zokwana has outlined the steps being taken by the government so far. 2 farms earlier affected have been quarantined, and the South African government has banned the sale of live chicken throughout the country. According to the ministry, 5,000 birds died of the highly contagious disease, and the remainder of the 24,000 birds farm are in the process of being culled.
We believe that if we contain the spread, and as we have destroyed the carcasses of those chicks that were there, as well as destroyed the eggs and the other broiler, the aim is to ensure that there's no contact with other chicks that are not yet affected. We've also come up with a view that says we should advise our people who are smallholder farmers to keep their chicks such that they don't leave feed and water to attract wild birds who may be carrying the disease. So through those measures, we believe that we will, one, make sure that our people are safe, as well as we're able to create a comfort to our markets, that we're doing all we should be doing to manage this disease.
The meat exports are about 1.5 billion a year last year, and the egg exports are a few hundred million rand a year, which is a worthwhile amount for us. We're already halfway through the year, and for all those farms that have registered compartments, the interruption will be maybe 6 weeks, 2 months. So I would guess that year to year we might lose 400-500 million, as long as there are no further outbreaks, and I can't be 100% sure that there will be no further outbreaks.
The head of the African Union, Alpha Conde, who offered to mediate in the crisis between Qatar and some of its neighbors, says it's vital to tackle terrorism and the sources of its funding. Mr. Conde, who is the president of Guinea, did not, however, say whether he believes Qatar is financing terrorists, as Saudi Arabia and its allies have alleged. But he says African countries can help mediate, as they are the ones who suffer the most from terrorism. The United Nations Security Council has approved a phased reduction of peacekeepers in Sudan's Darfur region. This is expected to halve the number of troops over the next year if conditions are conducive and the government is cooperative. UN Chief Antonio Guterres and the African Union had recommended the move to the 15-member Security Council in a report last month. Yesterday, the Council unanimously adopted a resolution that could also cut the number of police by more than a quarter. Conflict in Darfur began in 2003 when mainly non-Arab tribes took up arms against Sudan's Arab-led government. A joint AU-UN peacekeeping operation known as UNAMID has been on the ground for the past decade. The United Nations says up to 300,000 people have been killed and millions displaced during the conflict. The Norwegian Refugee Council has warned that less than 1/3 of the needs for emergency assistance across the world has been covered halfway into the year. The UN and humanitarian organizations have appealed for $23 billion this year, but $15 billion is still missing. The charity says that the appeals for DR Congo, Sudan, Chad, Cameroon and Mali are all less than 25% covered. The charity describes these as neglected crises. In Cameroon, where the security forces are fighting the Islamist militant group Boko Haram, it says the lack of funding has resulted in cuts in food rations. In DR Congo, where more than 1 million people have been forced out of their homes by the violence in the central Kasai province, the charity says many displaced children are not able to go to school. The group adds that the funding gap will claim lives that could have been easily spared. The Spanish police says that it has rescued 1,065 migrants off the coast of Libya over the past 24 hours. Police say the migrants were rescued from a number of dinghies that were adrift. Those rescued include people from Nigeria, South Africa, Mali, Ghana, Gambia, Niger, Guinea, Benin and Togo. Some of the women were pregnant and babies were amongst those rescued as well. The Spanish police efforts takes place as other emergency services, aid groups and Italian Navy vessels engage in rescue efforts. According to an Italian Coast Guard spokesman, about 5,000 migrants were picked up off the Libyan coast on Monday, and efforts have continued throughout the week. In the Middle East, Saudi Arabia has extended a 90-day amnesty for undocumented migrants. The amnesty ended on Tuesday, but thousands of Ethiopians are still stuck in Saudi Arabia after it expired without all of them having left. The communications minister, Negeri Lencho, says the Ethiopian government had asked for the amnesty to be extended. The initial amnesty started on March the 29th. During the period, anyone in breach of the country's residency and labor rules or regulations will be free to leave without facing any penalties. Still to come on Network Africa. Rights activists marched through Kenya's capital, Nairobi, demanding justice for murdered lawyer Willie Kimani.